It's somebody's freedom, it's somebody's liberty, it's somebody's silent protest.
It has been hijacked in large part by opportunists, con artists, right, scammers.
Bitcoin can be money the way gold is, but that doesn't mean Bitcoin is a currency.
Society is worse off in every regard if we have a new speculative Bitcoin bubble than it would be if the whole craze passed.
On the North Pacific in Central America lies the small town of El Zonte, El Salvador. The waves draw surfers from around the world, but these picture-perfect moments only capture one reality. Home to 3,000 residents, El Zonte is one of the poorest places in the country. But its street food is famous. The national dish is called pupusa. They're sold on nearly every street corner for just a couple US dollars. Maria Aguirre accepts virtual money as payment. Via a smartphone app, customers can pay with Bitcoin, the world's oldest cryptocurrency.
I was a little worried to accept payment in Bitcoin because it's a virtual currency that's not widely known. But it's been 2 years, and I'm still taking Bitcoin.
At first, the decision paid off for Maria Aguirre. The value of Bitcoin shot up to $60,000. But then, within just a few months, it lost more than 2/3 of its worth. Now Maria and some 50 fellow retailers can only hope the trend reverses. Bitcoin can theoretically be exchanged for dollars or euros at any time. In fact, holding on to this virtual currency rather than exchanging it can be a significant gamble, because the crypto market is highly volatile. Short-term fluctuations happen frequently where its value will dip or surge more than 10%. It's a risk some retailers in El Zonte are willing to take. They pay and do business in Bitcoin, but they don't exchange their crypto assets into dollars, hoping that its value will rise. Maria Aguirre is one of them. But at the end of 2022, things weren't looking so good.
I've had losses, but I hope to recover them soon.
Since then, the value of Bitcoin did rise again. Welcome news not only for Maria. A social Bitcoin project in El Zonte is financed through crypto donations. The project is geared towards preventing young people from turning to crime. Gangs and murder are a feared part of everyday life in El Zonte. Hope House gives young people in the community the resources to get a better start in life. The charitable initiative offers educational courses, recreational activities, and job opportunities.
Entonces, en el 2017, 2018.
In 2017 and 2018, many people had to suspend their support for this project due to various difficulties. But at the same time, there were newcomers who wanted to help, and they used Bitcoin.
The identity of the donor who offered funding to Jorge Valenzuela remains a big mystery. All that's known is that the person was based in the US. Even the initiator of the nonprofit Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador says he doesn't know who was behind the donation.
I mean, it was a six-figure sum over a number of years that was injected into the community in dollar terms, and so it was, definitely something that was substantial. The donor was looking for was not just to give Bitcoin to a project where they would convert it to dollars, which is what most nonprofits would want to do. That's the easiest thing to do. But they were looking for projects that were willing to use Bitcoin in a transactional way. And they believed that Bitcoin being used would actually be more important than the monetary value of it.
It's been more than 3 years since the project got underway. Those involved say there's been less crime. Plus, many residents are now living with sturdier roofs over their heads. Renato Salazar helped fund the new construction with Bitcoin on behalf of multiple donors. But now the families need to pay off their loans in Bitcoin too.
Puchica, ya descansando, pues, chico. And as you can see, is concrete. So
122 safe and stable homes in place of flimsier tin-roofed houses for 122 families. Not an insignificant number considering El Zonte only has a population of 3,000. The community members don't only mix concrete, they also learn how to pay in Bitcoin via their smartphones.
they don't have bank accounts, they don't have access to any financial system here, any financial program. They don't have access to loans, they don't have access to insurance, they don't have access to anything, right? So it would have been impossible for them to get a home like this.
El Zonte is considered a test case for the future of money. No matter one's capital, everyone here, rich or poor, can conduct business within a decentralized system. No dollars, no banks, no banknotes. Is Bitcoin a better and more ethical type of money? Can it replace standard currencies? Could it help alleviate the pressure on the world's poorest populations? There are many influencers and advocates who back Bitcoin. Are they doing so in the name of economic justice?
They're doing it because they're trying to make the world a better place. They truly believe that Bitcoin is good for people. And honestly, I understand that argument. There are many legitimate reasons why Bitcoin can be positive.
Frankfurt is Europe's banking capital. Here, the development of cryptocurrencies isn't perceived as positively. The European Central Bank, or ECB, is especially critical of Bitcoin. At the end of 2022, the ECB published a blog post lambasting Bitcoin. It was regarded as something of a declaration of war. The authors classified Bitcoin not as an innovation, but as a speculative bubble, and wrote that Bitcoin is taking its last stand, while investors stubbornly hang on. One of the authors is Ulrich Binzeil.
If we have a new speculative Bitcoin bubble, society is worse off than if the whole craze passed.
For the ECB, the idea of creating money without its oversight is simply unthinkable. It alone has the right to print the cash it deems necessary. It opposes circumventing banks to transfer money because that weakens the role of banks. With its independence and global reach, Bitcoin is a nightmare for authorities, especially considering the speculation on its increase in value.
Bitcoin
is not suited as a means of payment because its value is highly unstable, and a means of payment should not double as a speculative investment. Both these factors come together here, and people are being wooed with a positive narrative that the price of Bitcoin will continue to rise.
Every Bitcoin transaction is stored as a code on what's called a blockchain. What's unique is that the entire blockchain is stored identically on a network of thousands of computers. This is what makes Bitcoin a decentralized currency, outside the control of the ECB or other banks. Bitcoin was created in 2008 and outlined in this paper authored by Satoshi Nakamoto. The author's real identity is unknown. It's not even clear if there's just one person behind Bitcoin or several people. The first Bitcoin cost just 0.06 euro cents. In 2021, Bitcoin's worth shot up to over 58,000 euros. A 5-cent investment early on would have equaled about 5 million euros 11 years later, at least briefly. The total amount of Bitcoins will be capped at around 21 million. It's stipulated in the source code that there won't be any more beyond that, which is why many people believe scarcity will drive the price up. While leaders at the European Central Bank regard Bitcoin as highly speculative, researchers at the nearby Frankfurt School of Finance and Management take a very different stance.
Just because Mr. Binzai works for the European Central Bank doesn't automatically mean he's right. Only time will tell. I honestly find it rather puzzling that the ECB has opted to run a PR campaign against Bitcoin. In my view, Bitcoin is not necessarily an enemy of the euro.
The researchers don't regard Bitcoin as a traditional means of payment. They see it as more of an investment, similar to investing in gold hoping that its value will increase over time. The researchers don't believe Bitcoin will function as money on a global scale.
There's a relatively high volatility with Bitcoin. One day the price is through the roof, the next it takes a nosedive. It's impossible to establish prices that way. Plus, it's not accepted widely enough. When you dine out or fuel your car, you can pay in euros anywhere. Paying with Bitcoin is rarely an option.
But a recent development could work in crypto's favor. One of the main objectives of the European Central Bank is to prevent high inflation, and lately, it hasn't been succeeding. Everything is becoming more expensive. The value of money is falling.
If this stretches on year after year, we'll see that certain groups in society will face considerable challenges as costs go up, and while wages, for example, don't. And I think the importance of Bitcoin will grow during the same period.
Very few businesses in Europe accept Bitcoin. Critics say cryptocurrency enables cybercrime.
Buying goods and services in the mainstream economy is very difficult using a cryptocurrency. And so the main use case for purchasing goods and services using cryptocurrency is illegal activity, for the most part. So whether it is something like ransomware, or buying drugs, or maybe you want to hire a hitman, then yeah, Bitcoin is fantastic for that purpose.
That's one reason why most lawmakers don't want to see free trade happening in cryptocurrencies at all. Large regulated crypto exchanges are meant to oversee Bitcoin transactions, thereby deterring criminals. Customers' identities must be verified before they can buy Bitcoin, and profits can be taxed. Customers receive an account known as a wallet. If they exchange euros for Bitcoin, for example, those assets end up in their wallet.
This is the point where the state has access. Where am I depositing euros into the crypto exchange, and which wallet are the euros coming out of? And if the state has the feeling there's a fraudster in the mix, it can approach the crypto exchange and say, "Dear crypto exchange, does Mr. X or Miss Y own Bitcoin? If so, please share their wallet details. We need to see what's going on."
Los Angeles. In California, defying norms is the norm. Many here love cryptocurrency because it aligns with their politics. Freedom and independence from the state are core Bitcoin values. It plays on contrasts: outsiders versus the establishment, rich versus poor, new versus old.
Hey babes, multiple bank stocks were done on a global scale, not just in the US. And apparently there's manic drama. Two crazy things happened in crypto last night. Here's what you need to know, and one of them could involve Justin, FOMC update.
Boxing and Bitcoin have a lot in common, at least according to one of the world's most successful crypto influencers. They're both charged with symbolism. To go your own way, you'll have to fight for it.
It's about the underdogs and having control of your actions and using critical thinking. Change is coming.
But this romantic idea of a crypto utopia is unraveling. In 2022, several crypto apps and exchanges plunged users into financial ruin. The biggest scandal of all was the bankruptcy of FTX, the crypto exchange founded by Sam Bankman-Fried. He was accused of stealing billions from customers. In November 2023, a New York court convicted him. He was found guilty on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy.
I'm not discounting Sam. He did absolutely terrible things, very, very bad things. He lied, he stole, he practiced unethical behaviors. But at the same time, we have bad actors in every single industry. And we're going to continue to have bad actors in crypto. It's unfortunately human nature. But to sit and to single him out and not pay attention to what some of the other bankers and what the other public servants are doing would be a disservice to the American people and people in general in the world.
Before being convicted, Bankman-Fried lived here with his parents on a bail bond of $250 million. His situation, not unlike those faced in major bank failures.
That collapse is like so many other financial institution collapses that we've seen over the years, right? You have effectively an entity that is heavily reliant on leverage, which is placing big bets and then covering over those bets with more bets. And anytime you have an institution which is debt financed, they're going to run into some trouble.
In the US, unregulated crypto exchanges long dominated the market. No authority felt responsible for cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or the number 2 cryptocurrency, Ethereum.
Sie haben in Deutschland ungefähr 8 Millionen.
You have around 8 million holders of Bitcoin and Ethereum in Germany. And there are only, I'm saying that in quotes, 20,000 FTX victims. This shows that regulation has had a positive effect here. I would argue regulation is necessary and long overdue in America to prevent further damage.
Many feel the temptation to make big money with Bitcoin.
Am Ende würde ich sagen, geht's spekulative Investitionen.
Ultimately, I'd say it comes down to speculative investments and Bitcoin holders' vision that the value of Bitcoin will keep rising. That suggests that we have an asset class here that you can invest in and somehow secure a fantastic future. And of course, you need to maintain a narrative about what it's useful for. So they say it could be useful for payment transactions.
He's entitled to his opinion. However, I've done pretty well with Bitcoin, with trading it, with holding it, with using it to transact. And I haven't had anybody really tell me what to do with that. So, I mean, that's his opinion, and I'm sorry he feels that way. But if you look at the United States of America banking system and all the bonds and the traditional financial investments we have, they're not really doing too great either.
There are more than 8,000 cryptocurrencies out there. They're offered on a myriad of crypto exchanges, not to mention the countless obscure providers advertised on social media. The industry is a shark tank.
It has been hijacked in large part by opportunists, con artists, right? Scammers. I know many, many people have lost enormous amounts of money in these markets. It's a classic kind of bubble. Now, that's not to say that there isn't, right, really amazing technology that sits underneath it.
Recently, there's been a shift in the US. Users on crypto exchanges are now obliged to provide nearly as much personal information as they would need to when opening a traditional bank account. A far cry from the independence crypto promised.
Effectively recreated kind of like a traditional banking system on top of these cryptocurrencies. And I think most people who use them don't realize that they're back, using an institution which is very similar to the ones that they think they have fled.
Wendy O wants to conduct business independently of banks. That's why she stays clear of regulated crypto exchanges. She opts for the more technically advanced route of trading directly from person to person, known as peer-to-peer.
When you're using a third-party exchange, like a Binance or a Coinbase or Gemini, understand that is a third party. They are holding your cryptocurrency. If that exchange goes down, you can lose your money.
For most people, learning the jargon and inner workings of the complicated technology is too time-consuming. Crypto exchanges are a far simpler option. But Wendy O only trusts herself and Bitcoin in its original conception. Her Bitcoin is stored in her own wallet.
There's no third party that's monitoring you, that's tracking you, that's taking your information and then selling it to somebody else. Bitcoin doesn't do that. These third parties, they do.
Wendy O is part of a close-knit community of Bitcoin users that distrusts banks. For them, the notion that this new monetary system should be regulated the same way as the traditional banking system is out of the question.
Our public servants, that's what I like to call them, they're just a bunch of people with these very expensive pieces of paper, degrees, or they come from really great families, or they've got connections. They're just regular human beings. They don't necessarily know more than us. If you want to buy a home, if you want to rent, if you want to get an education, if you want to buy a car, food, whatever that may be, you have to have a bank account.
But will the banks stand idly by as people like Wendy O try to chip away their power and destroy their business? La Défense, a business district just outside Paris, is home to the headquarters of one of the oldest banks in the country. Société Générale's influence in the crypto business is already far greater than many Bitcoin users can imagine. Recently, Société Générale integrated a subsidiary called Forge. CEO Jean-Marc Stenger is spearheading a small team leading one of the banking world's most ambitious projects in the realm of crypto.
We
believe that we're entering a new era of financial markets and money. We're on the verge of a very radical and profound change when it comes to blockchain, especially in regard to how financial services are supplied to the customer. When it comes to these services, a fundamental revolution is on the horizon.
Société Générale has long been working to secure its position on the forefront of this revolution. It's allowed to trade in cryptocurrencies, offer wallets, and it supports authorities by regulating crypto traders. The French bank wants to make big money by leveraging blockchain technology for equity trades.
Financial institutions or companies will only issue shares or bonds digitally. They'll only exist in digital form on the blockchain. And that's what interests our customers, the ability to be faster, safer, and cheaper.
In the future, selling shares wouldn't be limited to the stock exchange. Instead, they would be programmed on a blockchain and traded from there. In the business world, these are known as smart contracts. And powerful financial players have embraced this new business model. New York is home to the largest stock exchange in the world. This is where big deals are struck. Until now, the field was clearly divided. Banks, brokers, and hedge fund traders speculated in pretty much anything that could turn a profit. Cryptocurrencies are sold outside of Wall Street's purview. But in early 2024, US authorities allowed Bitcoin ETFs to be traded on the stock exchange for the first time.
Now, if you told me you owned all of the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it because what would I do with it? I have to sell it back to you one way or another. I mean, maybe I have the same people, but it isn't going to do anything. The apartments are going to produce rental and the farms are going to produce food.
Stock market tycoon Warren Buffett doesn't see any intrinsic value in Bitcoin, so why should he speculate on it? Ultimately, it's a series of numbers that offers no immediate benefit. Many traditional financial managers, not only in New York, see this as its biggest shortcoming. But that attitude is gradually changing. Jordi Visser is the president of a hedge fund that manages over $4 billion. He sees himself as a pioneer and is very interested in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
No one can argue with the fact that the concept of the blockchain is a great idea as a technology. Whether we're able to use it in the manner that we hope is an argument that people can debate. But I think it's certainly going to be here, and I think it's something that we need. So I see it as the birthplace of an innovation which is going to help us get more authenticity to a world that has values on assets that are really hard to prove that they're worth what they are.
Many of Jordi Visser's colleagues advise against investing in Bitcoin because of the dramatic fluctuations in its value. But surprisingly, evaluations made by his financial advisors tell a different story.
Bitcoin's volatility has been declining. Last year, when people talk about the volatility of Bitcoin, I forget the final numbers, but US technology stocks were down almost as much. Amazon was down almost as much as Bitcoin last year. So what's the difference between people having a large weight in Amazon that was down significantly and in Bitcoin? I think we've gotten to the point where the volatility has been declining for years. It will continue to decline as it becomes a more accepted asset class.
In 2022, Bitcoin's value dropped 60% to around 15,500 euros. In the same time frame, Amazon was down 47%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, an index of 30 major companies in the US, was down 9%. In 2023, Bitcoin's value recovered and fluctuated between 20 and 30,000 euros. Leading experts from the world's financial hubs at least agree on one thing. The technology behind Bitcoin is ingenious, and it's well on its way to becoming an investment that generates a return.
Bitcoin is very much like gold. And what I mean by that is that it's a terrible medium of exchange, but it's a wonderful store of value. And I do think that we'll continue to see Bitcoin.
Plattsburgh is a small city in New York, close to the Canadian border. 20,000 residents, harsh winters, and no major tourist attractions. Unless you count this building, a former discount retailer. In 2018, it became one of the largest Bitcoin mining operations in the world. Bitcoin is still mined here today. The somewhat run-down building houses thousands of computers. All day, their sole purpose is to figure out codes. Ideally, every 10 minutes. Each block they crack is worth 6.25 Bitcoin. Validating each block is so complex that a single computer would take a very long time. So countless companies set up thousands of computers to increase their odds. It's an ongoing race. Whoever cracks the code the fastest gets the reward. In 2018, miners were generating 1,800 Bitcoins per day. But the problem is, all these computers constantly mining Bitcoin consume massive amounts of electricity.
Im letzten Jahr, als der Bitcoin-Preis
When the price of Bitcoin was higher, it was estimated that its electricity consumption worldwide was equivalent to that of the Netherlands. And in times of climate change and energy scarcity, that's simply not good for a thing that's value to society is unclear.
Bitcoin is so bad for the environment. It is so dangerous. Well, so is printing money. So is driving a car. So is the lighting here. So is you and I breathing, existing. Yes, Bitcoin does leave an itty-bitty carbon footprint, but so do a lot of these other things.
Is the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining overblown? Or is it a serious concern? Plattsburgh can provide some answers. On a global scale, electricity here is extremely cheap. It comes from a hydroelectric power plant on the Niagara River. That's what attracted the company CoinMint to set up its huge mining operation in the first place. The new company promised jobs and a boost in tax revenue. But gradually, people learned the reality of the business's impact was very different.
It's basically it's all about computers. That's all I know about it.
I don't like it. It's an ugly place. I can't go in there and shop. They use a lot of electricity.
It has raised our price in electric, and they didn't say that's the reason, but it's the talk. And also, it has caused, the Family Dollar here used to be over there, and they went a whole winter without heat because of the operation in the back that always had the door open because the machines working with the Bitcoin, you know, they have to constantly run to do the cryptocurrency.
Around the time CoinMint set up shop, Colin Reed became mayor of Plattsburgh. He teaches about banking and sustainability at the State University. He was appalled to learn that on some days, this building consumed 1/3 of all the electricity in his city of 20,000 residents.
These machines run 1,500 to 3,000 watts, very similar to a space heater, generally the same amount of heat. So to control that heat, if you have 3 to 10,000 machines like that in this room, you need to draw in a bunch of cold air and expel a bunch of hot air. So any Bitcoin mine operation can have a lot of holes in the wall, a lot of holes in the roof, fans everywhere. In the summertime, generate a lot of noise because those fans really need to run continuously when the weather is hot.
The Bitcoin mining operation proved to be a massive disruption for the residents of Plattsburgh. The cheap power supply generated from the Niagara River was not enough. The price of electricity suddenly shot up. For local companies like this paper mill, production became untenable. Colin Reed then forced the Bitcoin mining firm to pay for the extra electricity on its own. The company responded with a PR campaign.
I've seen many pitches from some very sophisticated with hundreds of millions of dollars of Wall Street venture capital money behind them. The Italian shoes and suits and all that kind of stuff. They've got a trade association that helps them do the talking points when they go into communities.
After all, there is enormous potential in the business. Colin Reed calculated that the Puerto Rico-based company earned up to $50 million a month at the start of its operation. Plattsburgh, a lower-income city, didn't see a dime.
So if they're making tens of millions of dollars of profit every month, surely there's going to be lots of flow back into the community. But these are profits in Bitcoin that can be essentially cashed in anywhere. There's no reason to believe for any reason that this money will stay in the community.
In the end, Plattsburgh did not rake in the promised tax dollars, nor were jobs created. Instead, for a time, residents were saddled with expensive electricity bills. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin mining firm moved many of its computers to the next town where electricity costs were lower. Colin Reed is no longer mayor of Plattsburgh. He wrote a book about cryptocurrencies. He was initially excited about blockchain technology, but he's been disillusioned.
If you look at who controls the wealth of Bitcoin, it's large corporations, it's multimillionaires, it's billionaires, it's venture capital, it's Wall Street. The complete entities that Bitcoin and Satoshi were designed to take out of the equation now dominate the market.
Large companies are involved wherever digital money is replacing cash. US companies especially are at the forefront, with Google Pay, Apple Pay, and PayPal. The European monetary authorities are facing pressure on two sides, from Bitcoin and from large private US-based companies. That's why the European Central Bank is turning its attention to developing the digital euro.
We think the digital euro must also be there to continue to limit the market power of these global companies. Just as it works with cash, we need to ensure the strategic independence of Europe.
So the ECB also wants to get into the business of digital money. The digital euro, however, would be very different from the decentralized Bitcoin. That's because, theoretically, every transaction by citizens could be monitored by the ECB.
technology. The only reason why they want to use blockchain technology, the only reason why they want to create the CBDC is they want to monitor people, they want to have control, they want to implement credit scores, they want people to do exactly what they are told and instill fear that if you don't do what I say, I'm going to have access to your money.
Ja, daran haben wir gar kein Interesse, sie zu kontrollieren.
We have no interest in controlling people. When designing the digital euro, we want to make it so that we don't receive personal data in the euro system and instead have anonymous transactions in our books. We don't want to know who has a particular account or who that person is.
Was das für eine Person ist.
There's deep mistrust on both sides. Banks and states fear that a decentralized currency without state supervision will lead to crime and chaos. Bitcoin users believe the state and banks want control.
If you believe in courts and laws, then you shouldn't be too worried about this potential visibility. If you have little faith in the courts and laws, then yeah, perhaps this would be something to be worried about.
El Zonte has had the nickname Bitcoin Beach for a while now. But actually, all of El Salvador has become something of a test case for Bitcoin. Here, human rights are not guaranteed, and the judiciary has very little power. In 2021, it became the first country to recognize Bitcoin as legal tender, a move spearheaded by populist President Nayib Bukele.
This was this unique opportunity. For them, they saw this as, wow, how else could we literally overnight have El Salvador known throughout the world, be in all these articles, have people change the narrative that even if people are speaking negative, they're talking about the money and the tech rather than the gangs and the murder.
The beginning of the Bitcoin era in El Salvador was celebrated with great fanfare. Thousands of crypto enthusiasts cheered on their rock star leader. Nayib Bukele projected himself as a cross between a baseball cap wearing rapper and a savior. And he made his stance on Bitcoin clear.
So it's just not a good, a cool, a nice idea. It's the evolution of humankind. So we're going there, and you can't stop evolution.
This evolution was heavily promoted in El Salvador. Every citizen who downloaded Chibo, the state-run Bitcoin wallet app, received $30 worth of Bitcoin as a gift. A controversial means of winning people over.
Vielleicht hat den Bitcoin verstanden.
Maybe he understood Bitcoin, maybe he's crazy, maybe he's running an experiment. We just don't know. It could have been any country. Honestly, for me, it's not relevant that it's El Salvador. What's important is that a country somewhere in the world dared to take this step, and I'm fairly certain that other countries will follow, even if it takes a few more years.
The reality is, there are only a few stores in El Salvador's capital that actually accept Bitcoin, especially after its value dropped at the end of 2022. Most people use the dollar.
Can one pay in Bitcoin?
No.
No, not here.
Too hard?
I never tried it.
Not at the moment, but no one's come to explain how it works.
Unfortunately, my children's school or my son's university doesn't accept payments in Bitcoin.
According to a survey, 70% of El Salvador's population distrust the new legal tender. Many businesses that accept Bitcoin immediately exchange for dollars, but the Bitcoin community abroad remains enthusiastic.
I absolutely love what he's doing because by making Bitcoin legal tender, he's essentially taking power back for his country and telling everybody else in the world, this is what we're doing and I'm trying to improve the quality of life of my people the best way I can.
In reality, Bukele wants to make his country independent from the influence of foreign institutions like the International Monetary Fund. If Salvadorans buy Bitcoin without the state-run Chibo app, their assets would be safe from their own government's influence.
Imagine we live in a country with unstable institutions, and I have 5,000 currency units in my account, not necessarily in euro. The state doesn't like it. So what does it do? It could potentially take the money away from me. In other words, a kind of expropriation or confiscation is possible if the value is determined from the outside, by a state or a banking system or government or a central bank. But it's not possible with Bitcoin.
El Salvador has become a place of pilgrimage for Bitcoin believers. There are even plans to build a Bitcoin city. Traders, crypto miners, and entrepreneurs would live and work together there. The president's cousin is trying to attract investors and startups. So far, a huge crypto city at the foot of a volcano is still a pipe dream.
You get 0% income tax, 0% capital gains, property tax, payroll tax, municipal taxes, and 0% CO2 emissions.
Building this new financial hub would cost an estimated $1 billion in one of the poorest countries in the world, where the average annual income is about 4,000 euros. Nayib Bukele is counting on support and funding from abroad.
I'm
fully convinced that sooner or later there will be Bitcoin cities. There are people who want to be engaged in this community. So they'll pack up and suddenly start moving to El Salvador. It's a bit like religions in the past, where believers would gather in monasteries or elsewhere and live and do things together.
Money is based on trust and belief. Cryptocurrencies have added a new dimension to how we think about money. El Salvador is reflective of the fear and hope surrounding Bitcoin. But cryptocurrencies have already changed the world. And in all likelihood, it's just the beginning.